Hey, Pretty Girl Club. Welcome back to the Pretty Privilege series. I miss making these long videos, so I've got my notes here today. I hear a lot of people talking about beauty pedestals, and it's interesting how you've got dozens of YouTube channels talking about beauty pedestals, yet they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So, the Exoticals are going to be stepping in and talking about the beauty pedestals. So, what is a beauty pedestal? Who has one? How do you build it? How do you keep it? What are the benefits of it? And why should we care? And by the way, this is a spin off to my Pretty Privilege versus Medium Ugly videos. If you want more content like this, if you are binge watching my content while you're at work or something and you're just listening to me in your earphones, be sure to join the Patreon because I've got over 400 different episodes on there that are not posted on YouTube, and Patreon is less censored than YouTube. So be sure to check that out. But something that a lot of women won't acknowledge is you don't just go from hideous to pretty privilege. Okay, so that's not how that works. I see a lot of women who had a glow up in their 20s or 30s or 40s. Suddenly they think they're an expert on pretty privilege. No, why don't we let the women who were born with the pretty privilege, why don't we just, let those women be the authority? And, this is no disrespect to the women who they found their beauty when they're older. That's fine. But I feel like finding your beauty after 3 or 4 decades, that aligns more with being medium or kind of like, being quote unquote average, because your formative years, your childhood and teenage years, they were all coming from the perspective of being invisible or being unattractive. So that's one of the main differences between women who have a beauty pedestal versus women who don't. The women who already had a beauty pedestal, we didn't have to seek after it in our 20s, 30s, and 40s because we already had it from the time we were children. So when you're a child, a part of your experience is you have a lot of adults doting on you and talking about how cute you are and saying that you have such a pretty face, or maybe they're pinpointing certain features on your face, talking about how pretty they are. And I can always tell who has a real beauty pedestal versus who doesn't, because usually the women who are seeking after beauty pedestals as adults, their personality, they just never have what I call the pretty girl personality. This is something that can't be faked, because I do believe that your privileges do shape your personality. They do. Your privileges do affect your personality. It affects how entitled you behave. You know how a lot of people, they call us exoticals entitled and conceited, etc. It's not so much that we're conceited, it's more so that we've had a pedestal for our whole lives. We don't know what it's like to be the standard of being ugly. We don't know what it's like to be invisible. So it's not something that the exoticals are doing maliciously. A lot of women have said that we need to acknowledge our privilege, so that's what we're doing. We're acknowledging our privilege. And part of privilege is a beauty pedestal. But yeah, the real beauty pedestal is the one where you were born with it, you had it since you were a child. And by the way, I'm not against like surgeries and stuff like that. I'm going to get into that later. I just feel like beauty pedestals are not so much based on the surgery. I view surgeries as more of a beauty enhancement. It's not a beauty replacement. Those are supposed to be enhancements that make you look even better. So if somebody is chopped, getting a nose job is not going to suddenly make them a fucking supermodel. And I see a lot of women saying, oh, well, Beyonce got a nose job and so got a nose job. And it's like, okay, but those women were already pretty though. So they already had a beauty pedestal. So when they got the surgery, the surgeon already had beautiful material to work with, if that makes sense. So that's why they look good versus when a hideous woman gets a bunch of surgeries, she really just looks botched in a lot of cases. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about. Have you ever seen women who just kind of have this botched look when it comes to their face? So they'll be acting like they have a huge beauty pedestal, and it's almost like they're a caricature of what they think a pretty woman would act like. Have you ever met somebody where maybe she didn't have pretty privilege, and then as soon as she puts on a lace front, she starts acting brand new? She completely changes her personality into a caricature of what she thinks a woman with that pretty hair texture would act like. So that's what I'm talking about. That's an example of someone who didn't actually have a beauty pedestal. They're relying on all these different enhancements. They're really trying to use beauty enhancements as beauty replacements. That's a sign that that woman doesn't have a beauty pedestal, because without the lace front or without the replacements, she goes back into her shell. So I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but in my case, I remember in college, I went to an HBCU. There were a lot of black girls who, once they took out their sew in, once they took out the lace front and their hair was natural, they turned into introverts. They became super quiet. They never spoke up in class again. They didn't want to go out to any parties. They didn't want to be seen in public. But then, as soon as they got their new sew in, as soon as they got their new wig, suddenly they're the life of the party. That's a sign of a woman who did not actually have a beauty pedestal. Because remember, beauty pedestals are consistent. Your beauty pedestal is constant, it will always be there. Once pretty, always pretty. It's very difficult to completely fuck yourself up. Do you know how many surgeries you would have to get? You would have to get a ton of bad surgeries to really ruin your pretty privilege. And I'm not saying it's impossible, but most women who were born with a beauty pedestal, they're going to always have that beauty pedestal. That's why you still see women in their 60s and 70s, like Halle Berry or Vanessa Williams. You know, they're still pretty even when they're older. Like Diana Ross or Tracy Ellis Ross, all these different women, they still look good. Like Bernice Burgos is another example. These women are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they are still pretty. You know why? Because they already had that beauty pedestal. Okay, number two, there are some women in this world where you may not think they're ugly, but society thinks they're ugly, or men think they're ugly, or white people, black people, Latinos, the United States, whoever thinks they're ugly. So I see a lot of discourse online where they'll be like, "Oh no, you're attractive, you're just not conventionally attractive." And it's like, "Ma'am, you can create as many phrases as you want, but the bottom line is if you get treated as ugly, there's no way that you can try to affirmative action your way into beauty. That's not how it works, because if your beauty pedestal relies on charity, then it's not real beauty. You know, you're not really getting the pedestal. So again, that aligns more with the experience of average women. So these women, they feel a sense of having to fight to be visible. They have to fight to be seen. They have to fight for compliments. They have to fish for compliments. They have to go online and post content and say, "Oh my God, I'm so hideous." And then they're hoping that people will leave comments saying, "No, you're actually beautiful." So that's a sign of a woman living a lifestyle where she did not have a beauty pedestal, because, you know, she's spending her life trying to chase after that pedestal. So if she's trying to chase after that pedestal, that's a sign that she didn't really have it. You know, obviously you're not going to chase after something if you already had it. Another sign of a woman who is more average or doesn't have a beauty pedestal, these women tend to rely on trends. So it could be trending surgeries, it could be trending beauty items. Have you ever met a label whore? Somebody where they have to have like the designer sunglasses, and you know, they have to do these super high car payments, luxury cars, everything has to cost more. Why? Well, it's because her face card is declining, and so she has to use her credit card to try to purchase something that will take her out of the unattractive category. And I know it's very sad, you know, society is very biased, but this is a very realistic, practical channel. So I'd rather just be honest with the Exoticals about what that is. Because this is going to help us to also understand the women who come against us in terms of like jealousy or sabotage. But number three, part of having a beauty pedestal is you are not the standard of ugly for any race, ethnic group, or nation. So, for example, when you look at the media, I see a lot of people complaining about the media. When I look at the media, I've never seen a movie where the standard of a woman being ugly looks like me. I've never seen that. I don't have a fear of hanging out with certain racial groups, or, you know, a fear of going to certain countries because in that country, my exact phenotype is the standard of being ugly. No. So that's a sign of actually having a beauty pedestal, though. That's a sign of a beauty pedestal because you are not the face of quote unquote unattractiveness in any ethnic or racial group or nation around the world. So that's a privilege. That's a huge privilege. You can go anywhere and you're still going to be treated like a human being. We all know that society is very biased and people treat others differently based on how much status they think you have. And beauty is one of the most powerful. Actually, I would say beauty is probably, well, I wouldn't say it's the most powerful, but it's one of the most powerful forms of status a woman can have. And the reason I talk about beauty as opposed to just wealth is because even wealthy women will spend millions of dollars trying to attain beauty. So that's how I know that even if you had the wealth still wasn't enough, because look at all these women who are millionaires and billionaires. Look at all these women like Jeff Bezos' wife or the Kardashians, Paris Hilton, all these women who are heiresses. They're millionaires or billionaires, yet they still wanted to seek after that beauty pedestal. They still felt like all of their millions were not enough status. They still wanted to also have the beauty mixed in there as well. So beauty is very important when it comes to being a woman. A lot of people in society value you based off of the beauty you have or don't have. So this is why even women who are already rich, they still feel pressure to go and get the nose job or the whatever, the stylist, or get their makeup professionally done. Okay, number 4, pretty privileged women can relate to pretty privileged content. And usually their life story lines up with pretty privilege. I've noticed that pretty privileged women are not offended by the exotical content. They're not offended by my content. I got white women on here who are pretty privileged. They relate to the content. There are a ton of Indian women on here, Mexican women who relate to my content because they simply have pretty privilege. So I feel like when you have pretty privilege, you're not offended when someone talks about it. But the women who don't have pretty privilege, these are the ones who want to silence you the most. They're the ones who say things like, oh, well, looks don't even matter anyway. Or your pretty privilege couldn't save you. Or they will celebrate a pretty woman being unalived. They will celebrate pretty women getting abused. That's a sign that she never had that beauty pedestal. So how do you know when you're like medium ugly, for example? I'm going to use the black community as an example because I myself, this is a blackness centered channel. So if you're not black and listening to this, you may not be able to relate to this part. But how do you know you're medium? Well, in the black community, for example, you'll have a sense of sisterhood with other women. Women who are not a threat, women who are not attractive, a lot of them have a ton of female friends. They have a big giant circle. They have a big friend group. A lot of them are popular. Have you ever heard of the trope, the fat, loud, funny girl? So they've got a lot of people who love them. They've got a lot of people who kind of stand them, or people who will support them at all costs. A lot of people will they'll defend you a lot more when you're quote unquote medium ugly or average. People will defend you more. People will fight till the death to make sure that you are protected. Other women who feel medium ugly or average, they see themselves in you. And so that's why they have this special sisterhood and camaraderie with you. Medium ugly women have more of a sense of sisterhood with other women. They tend to get along perfectly well with other women. Also, medium ugly women actually get a lot of compliments. They get way more praise on social media. They get a lot of likes. They get a lot of comments. They get a lot of people saying, oh my God, you're so gorgeous. Oh my God, look at you in your bikini. Oh, body positivity. Even though you're 500 pounds, body positivity. Women who do not have a beauty pedestal, they are more coddled. And it's considered improper to say something negative about a woman who's not pretty. That's considered bullying. But it's not considered bullying if you say something negative about a gorgeous woman, because that gorgeous woman already has privilege anyway. So that's another part of the experience of average women. They have a really big sense of sisterhood. They are welcomed with open arms. They've never lost any friendships due to their desirability. So some of you guys have mothers who are medium ugly. I don't know how to describe it, but some of you guys in the audience may have a mother who was not attractive or maybe not considered attractive. Maybe you take after your father who was very handsome. And so you came out as the pretty girl. And then maybe your mother, she was never the pretty girl. So this is also where you get that jealousy dynamic of mothers who are jealous of their daughters. Or you've got these medium women, kind of these average women, who talk crap about their daughters. And then they'll be like, no one's jealous of you. And it's like, no, in reality, no one was jealous of you. So it's really the mother kind of projecting her averageness onto the daughter. So I'm just going to use some celebrity examples like Tokyo Toni, I think that's her name, and Black China are a fantastic example of this. Tokyo Toni threatened to unalive her daughter. She literally humiliates her daughter all the time. She has threatened to physically fight her daughter. And that's an example of a woman who she always felt medium or kind of like average. So she's not ugly at all, but she's also not considered drop dead gorgeous or whatever. And so when you see her daughter, who is considered beautiful, Black China, she did all this modeling and stuff like that. And she's always been praised for her beauty. Now she's got this hair care line. Imagine having short hair and you still get to have a hair care line. A lot of women in the unambiguous Black community can't get away with that. They can't have short 4C hair and then have a hair care line that's successful. That's just not really a thing. Um, so that's a form of privilege, though. That's a part of Black China's beauty pedestal. So for some women in the audience, maybe your mother or your grandmother or sisters or other women in your family, maybe they were always considered normal or quote unquote medium, and maybe you were the pretty sister. You were the beautiful daughter. You just came out looking like an angel. All the genetics, all the family genetics just lined up perfectly when it came to you. And so here you are, this beautiful little girl, this beautiful little teenager or whatever, and now your own mother is gaslighting you, saying things like, nobody's jealous of you, nobody cares how you look, nobody would ever treat you mean because you're too pretty. That's being conceited. Well, of course she's going to say that because she doesn't have your experience. She can't relate. So as far as why she can't relate, I don't know, but that is something to think about. Have you dealt with a jealous mother, jealous sisters, jealous aunties or cousins? Do you want to know if your mother or your female family members were unattractive? Well, think about it. Was your mom always beefing with her sisters who were beautiful? Was your grandma always beefing with the aunties who were beautiful? That's something to think about. Because for some women, they happen to be pretty privileged, but maybe their mom or the other women in their family are not. So that is something to think about. And then on the other hand, you've got the women who come from generations of pretty privilege where, their mothers will actually warn them. So like in my case, my mom is pretty privileged. My aunties and them, they're all pretty privileged. So in my case, my mom actually warned me from the time I was about maybe 10 years old. She actually warned me that, hey, girls are sometimes jealous, or, she kind of let me know ahead of time that women can be jealous, and especially when it comes to men, and they could be, gossipy and catty. So I would say that's kind of the difference between being raised by a mother who is on a beauty pedestal, or she already spent her life being on a beauty pedestal, versus a mother who was not on a beauty pedestal. So that's something to think about as well. And I'm going to use Creole women. I'll use Creole women and Afro-Latinas as an example of this, because I feel like a lot of Creole and Afro-Latinas come from generations of pretty privilege. And so, yes, I do see it a lot where the mothers will tell their daughters, oh, other women might be jealous or whatever. And then you've got some women in the unambiguous Black community who say that that's colorism. They'll be like, no, you're telling your daughter that people are jealous of her. That's rude. You're looking down on other people. And it's not so much that they're trying to look down on other people. It's that they're trying to protect their daughters because they understand that they have been on a generational beauty pedestal. So if you're pretty, your mom's pretty, all your sisters are pretty, aunties are pretty, grandma is pretty, your pretty privilege is actually going to be a conversation in your household. Your parents, the women in your family, they may try to warn you about women bullying you or being jealous of you. Another good example of this is Jordyn Woods and her little sister Jody Woods. Both of these women are pretty privileged. And I've seen Jordyn Woods kind of defending Jody Woods before because other little girls were like kind of jealous of Jody Woods. I think Jody is she might be 18 now, but when she was younger, I do remember when other little girls were kind of bullying her on social media, and then Jordyn Woods came in and she would always try to like defend and support her sister. So that's another difference between women who come from families where all the women are on a beauty pedestal versus women who come from mothers like Tokyo Toni, for example, where the mother does not feel like she was on a pedestal. So one is not better than the other. It's just, I'm just saying this to help get you thinking, because it can help you to kind of find healing as well. Because I think sometimes pretty girls, they get mad at their mothers or they get mad at their family members. And you don't necessarily have to be mad at them. Sometimes your family members don't have the privileges that you have. And I know that's very hard to accept. But sometimes your own family will never be able to experience the types of privilege that you can experience. So it doesn't mean you're better than them. You don't have to look down on them, but it can help you to kind of stop putting them on such a pedestal. I think society teaches us to naturally put our families on a pedestal, but your family doesn't know everything. Family can't teach you everything. And so when it comes to the whole pretty privilege beauty conversation, sometimes you have these toxic mothers who try to convince their own daughters that they're unattractive. That's another thing too. Having a malicious mother, or just having a mother with a crabs in a bucket mentality where even if you do look gorgeous, she will literally try to convince you that you're not that pretty. Or you sometimes have these self-hating mothers where, that mother hates to see her own features on your face. Or it could be a father as well, actually. It could be a self-hating mother or father that hates to see their own facial features on you. So maybe they will put down your beauty, even though you actually do have a beauty pedestal. But they want to humble you. It's this mindset of, if I don't get to be pretty, you can't either. Who do you think you are? Walking out of my house with that pretty makeup on. Who do you think you are? Growing your hair out and clearing up your acne and losing weight. How dare you try to use my facial features and have a beauty pedestal? So sometimes you also have these family members who will experience rage. I've seen that. And that's why I use Tokyo Toni as an example, because she literally has so much rage against Black China because, that must be very traumatizing. Think about it. Your own relative is considered drop dead gorgeous, and you, their sister or their mother or whatever, you are considered medium or regular average. So yeah, sometimes people will have this rage against women who are pretty privileged because it's this mindset of, I was so close, yet so far away. I was so close to being a beauty standard, but I just had one or two things that were off. And so now I'm not the beauty standard. You guys saw the story times from the Exoticals. There was one Exotical who wrote in, and she said that her own sister bleached her skin and relaxed her hair as a way to compete with her. So that's an example of someone who may be experiencing kind of this internalized rage. And I mean, thankfully, that sister didn't do anything violent. But that's another thing as well. Women who are quote unquote medium, they have different ways of processing their rage. Some women process by sleeping with a pretty girl's boyfriend. Have you ever been around that type of woman? Have you ever had a friend where any guy you like, she automatically likes him now? So that's actually a form of her trying to emotionally regulate herself. She feels dysregulated because she'll never have the male gaze. Like she will never effortlessly have attention or a beauty pedestal. And so the closest thing she can get to a beauty pedestal is by sabotaging you. Feeling like she stole your man, even though that doesn't really exist. But some women, they think that's a thing. So, she feels like, oh, now I'm just as pretty as Sarah because I got to sleep with her boyfriend. Now I'm just as pretty because I get to hang out in the same friend group as her. Some women don't want to be your friend, they just want access to you. And that's another sign that you have a beauty pedestal. Even when it comes to the exotical space, I can use myself as an example. I can use the other anonymous exoticals as an example. Think about the women who want access to us. They try to find us online. They try to dox us or whatever. Well, why would you care so much? Well, it's because deep down inside, you actually believe that I do have a beauty pedestal. Obviously, I can't be hideously ugly if I'm able to talk about beauty and pretty privilege in such detail. So some women, they want to figure out who you are. They want access to you. They want to figure out all your secrets. And I've also noticed that they have this desire to expose you. So that's another aspect of ugly girl rage. I don't think I can say the U word on YouTube, but that's another aspect of average girl rage. The way that she expresses it is by quote unquote exposing the pretty girl. So, okay, where am I on my notes now? Women with a beauty pedestal also have multiple sources of beauty. Okay, so if a woman only has one source of beauty, for example, her complexion, doesn't matter what color she is, but that's one of the things that some women think is a source of beauty, and you know what? It is actually. But that's not a beauty pedestal though, because a real pedestal is propped up by multiple sources of support. So when I talk about a beauty pedestal, what I'm saying is you have multiple sources of beauty. So not just one source of beauty. Oh, I have a healthy body shape. Well, that's just one source of beauty. They actually have a phrase for that, and it's called butterface. So that's not a beauty being a butterface, that's not a beauty pedestal, ma'am. So That's why I say that women who just have one source of beauty, or they have very small, like limited sources of beauty, I would say that they kind of average out. That's why I call it average or medium. Because I really believe that most people are actually not ugly. Most people are just, regular, average, medium. So you got inconsistent pretty privilege. That's a sign of somebody that does not have a beauty pedestal. Because what's causing the inconsistency? Women who feel like they have quote unquote ugly features canceling out their beauty. That's another example of not having a beauty pedestal because, she feels like she's got 5 or 10 or 15 different things that are literally canceling out the beauty. So that's more of the experience of the average everyday woman. And most women are quote unquote average. Most women are normal and regular, and that is okay. That's totally fine. But, this is just not the channel for you. So every other women, you can go watch any of the other millions of channels on YouTube. Why would you come to this one? This is supposed to be a small niche corner of the internet for the women who can relate. So having a beauty pedestal means you have multiple sources of beauty. So I'll give you an example. Women who have a beautiful face, if you get called, like if people say, oh, your face card doesn't decline, or, if people have always said, oh, she has such a pretty face, or if people are comparing your face to a celebrity of any kind, if you are getting your face compared to beauty icons, such as, I don't know, Beyonce, Rihanna. I'm using Exoticals as the example because that's my core audience for those of you who are not Black watching this. But let's say you're getting compared to like Beyonce, Rihanna, Ruby Rose, Bernice Burgos, Jasmine Tooks, Ryan Destiny. Let's say you're getting compared to all these different women who are considered beauty icons, or a lot of people are complimenting your face, or they say your face is so pretty, or they compliment your makeup when you're really not wearing a lot of makeup. That's a sign that you have a face card. Have you ever had somebody mistake you for wearing a full face of makeup when in reality you have no makeup on? You don't have on any eyeliner. You just have naturally slanted eyes or naturally doe eyes or whatever. That's a sign of having a face card. So with your face, you already have pretty eyes, nose, lips, eyebrows, and bone structure. That's already 5 sources of beauty right there. So that is a form of a beauty pedestal because you got 5 sources of beauty. Another way that you'll know you have a face card is you tend to struggle with complacency when it comes to your body. And by the way, I'm speaking about myself as well. So staying a beluga, part of why I allowed myself to be a beluga at one point is because I had other sources of beauty. So I was like, look, I got a face card. That's a source of beauty. Hair texture is a source of beauty. Hair length, hair silkiness is a source of beauty. In my case, complexion, whatever. And so being thin or having a healthy body shape is not a big deal. Well, that's a sign that you're using your other sources of beauty. You still have enough of a beauty pedestal, basically, to where you don't really have to emphasize the other parts of your beauty. But you know me, I'm always going to encourage the Exoticals to use everything you have to your advantage. So, obviously I want you guys to have healthy bodies and stuff. But for the women they have a pretty face, and they don't care that their stomach is big or whatever, part of why they can get away with that is because they still have enough of a beauty pedestal to have pretty privilege in everyday life. And this is why in the case of Black YouTube, you hear women complaining. They'll be like, oh, well, this fat mixed chick, she stole my man. This fat pretty girl, they're still getting worshipped. People are bowing down and worshiping them. Or they make fun of Ice Spice and they say, oh, well, Ice Spice is fat. Well, she's chunky. Well, she has cellulite, blah, blah, blah. But then she's still getting a pedestal. And by the way, congrats to Ice Spice on her brand deal with Wendy's. But that's an example, though, of a woman who already has a beauty pedestal. She has options, basically, for her beauty. So she gets to decide, you know what, I don't feel like eating healthy. I'm just going to eat these chicken wings and some candied yams or whatever, and then just be chunky, and then just rely on my 5 sources of beauty, which is my face, eyes, nose, lips, cheekbones, whatever. And then I can also use my complexion as one of my beauty pedestals, hair texture. I mean, anything that is a part of your physical body can be used as a part of your beauty pedestal. So that's another example of one, that's why some people say, oh, well, she's just riding off of her complexion. It's really not just the complexion, because I feel like complexion alone doesn't cancel out everything else. Like, for example, simply being white. I'll use the white complexion as an example. Being white, that doesn't automatically cancel everything else out and cause you to have pretty privilege. Look at Erica Kirk, for example. So that's not, it's not that, oh, it's the complexion alone. I think that the only people who make that argument are women who are triggered by lighter complexions. You know, they're women who are jealous of certain complexions, or they're women who wish they had a certain complexion. Because anybody light skinned can also tell you that when they get a tan, they're still pretty. That's another sign, by the way. Let's say that part of your beauty pedestal is your complexion. Let's say you're light skinned. Okay, but even if you got a tan, you're still pretty. So now what? So that's proof that it wasn't just the complexion that caused her to be treated special. Because even when she has a tan, she's still treated as pretty, or she still gets compliments. It's not like her compliments get canceled out, or suddenly she's treated as ugly because she went to the beach one day. If you get treated as ugly because you went to the beach for one day, then you didn't have any pretty privilege in the first place. You didn't have, that's more of, again, that goes back to that quote unquote average experience, where maybe they do only have one source of pretty privilege. It's their melanin. Maybe it's their dark skin tone. And by the way, let's talk about this for a second. Beauty pedestals in terms of skin, because I actually think that there are multiple sources of beauty when it comes to skin as well. You can be any complexion, but for some people, it could be your actual skin tone. So maybe you have a desirable skin tone. Maybe it's your chocolate or caramel or pale. I think another source of beauty in terms of your skin is the smoothness and the quality of your skin. So, for example, in my case, I feel way more confident when it comes to my legs since I lost weight, because now I don't have a bunch of cellulite hanging out in the back of my leg. Like, that was a legit insecurity. Not having smooth skin, I think a lot of people underestimate that as well. So I think that's another aspect of a beauty pedestal, because everybody doesn't get compliments on their complexion, whether they're dark or light. I feel like sometimes complexion compliments, it's not just based on your color, it's also based on the quality of your skin. So maybe having a smooth, even tone. So you don't have a whole bunch of stretch marks. You don't have a whole bunch of acne scars and stuff, or like random scars and hyperpigmentation. Maybe your skin is just as smooth as butter, or it's just smooth as silk, and everything just looks perfect, like on your whole body. That's another source of a beauty pedestal. And then I think in terms of skin tone, there is a such thing as light skin privilege or dark skin privilege or white privilege, like if you're white. So that's another thing as well. And I'm not against people like using their skin complexions or profiting off of it. I actually don't give a fuck, because other people's skin tones don't take away from mine. I'll never be intimidated by another woman who celebrates her complexion. But yeah, so that's another aspect of your beauty pedestal, though, dark skin privilege. So an example of dark skin privilege would be, maybe you go into the Black community. You're celebrated by people in the Black community. You're celebrated in Afrocentric spaces. You're a true standard of Blackness. Like, let's say you look like, I don't know, Lupita Nyong'o, or like India Ari. India Ari, she is celebrated in Afrocentric Hotep types of circles. Same thing with Lauryn Hill. She's celebrated in Afrocentric circles. So it's not like these women are just out in the abyss, like they don't have any privilege. No, you have a sense of privilege. It's just going to be more so probably in the dark skin community, or maybe in the Black community, or some sort of African communities. And this is why I'm heavily against people coming against African communities or Black communities, because it's like, ma'am, that's probably one of the only places where your dark skin tone is going to be the most celebrated or viewed as a standard. It's going to be in a place where a lot of the people are dark skinned, and so they want dark skin representation. And I think one of the biggest beauty mistakes for dark skinned women is calling the Black community dusty. That's one of the most idiotic You're literally the worst person to call it dusty, because you're calling other people of your own complexion, whether they're men or women, you're calling them all dusty. And those are the ones who are most likely to appreciate your complexion more so than random white people or non-Black people. Okay, so that's an example of skin tone privilege. Also, every skin complexion has positive stereotypes associated with it. I think a lot of women on YouTube, they profit off of being negative, so that's why they talk about how dark skin sucks or whatever. And that's a very fucked up talking point, by the way. But I think that every skin complexion has positive stereotypes. So, for example, when I think of dark skin, I think of the beach. I think of like being sun-kissed. So I don't tend to think of tan skin as being sun-kissed. I tend to think of tan skin as being multiracial or mixed, or kind of like relatable to the most people. I view lighter skin tones as having ambiguity or more of like this fluid identity. But when it comes to darker skin tones, I think a lot of people stereotype them as aging well. Okay, that's a positive stereotype. That's something that can be used as a part of your beauty pedestal. You don't have to make fun of women who are lighter skinned though and say they age badly, because that's false, and it also proves that you're a jealous bitch. But I think that every skin complexion actually has positive stereotypes associated with it. And that's really what a beauty pedestal is. It's being stereotyped in a positive way. But another aspect of a beauty pedestal is you have a positive collective image, or maybe you have a very diverse collective image. I think that when it comes to my complexion, part of my collective image, part of the positive side of it is there's diversity within my collective image. So, for example, we've got our ratchet representation, we've got the regular classy representation, we've got suburban representation, we've got the traditional feminine mothers and wives as a part of our representation. You got women like Nara Smith or whatever. So I feel like having a diversified image is definitely something that contributes to my beauty pedestal, because I can flow in and out of different aesthetics without it looking like I'm wearing a costume. So it contributes to my fluid identity. That's just me using myself as an example, obviously. But think about how women who look like you, what kind of image do they have in the media? And I'm not talking about just mainstream media. In fact, I don't believe that mainstream media still exists. I think that monoculturalism is really dead, honestly. Most people don't even have cable anymore. So there are so many different niche communities. I think social media is more relevant now. So that's something to think about. How is my image portrayed on social media? Is that a part of my beauty pedestal? Like, for example, with Exoticals, we are stereotyped as being social climbers. That's positive. I don't think that's negative. I think that's actually a very positive thing. We are stereotyped as always being able to get to the bag. We will get to the bag, we will get our status, we can become famous or rich and not have to work hard. We don't have the hard working stereotype. Being hardworking is not bad though, but I think that no matter what race, ethnicity, or skin complexion you are, there probably are at least some positive stereotypes about your group. So that's a part of a beauty pedestal. What positive stereotypes are there about your genetic group? What positive stereotypes are there about your hair texture or your facial features, or about your eye color, your complexion, etc.? That's just something to think about. But I think I'm on number 10. Part of how you'll know that you have a beauty pedestal is you are so pretty that you get scared when you look in the mirror. You used to get nervous when you went to school with your hair or makeup done because you knew that it would lead to danger, or maybe you were always hyper visible. That's how you know you really got a beauty pedestal. Have you ever been so beautiful that you look in the mirror and you literally get nervous? You get nervous before you're about to go out because you know that you're about to have all eyes on you. And in some cases, that can actually be dangerous. So that's a very strong sign that you have a beauty pedestal. It's a very powerful beauty pedestal because basically you're magnetic. So, that can be good or bad. So you're magnetic, but you're also drawing in a lot of other things as well. You're magnetic to the evil eye or like jealous people or whatever. So maybe you're magnetic to predatory men as well. There are always pros and cons with every privilege. So have you ever looked in the mirror and you look so good that you get nervous? Your heart starts pounding. You literally get a drop in your stomach because of how good you look. Because you already know there's about to be some drama or some chaos. Or have you ever looked so good that you're scared to walk outside at night? You're scared to get on the train. You're scared to get on the subway. You're scared to go into work with your little red lipstick on. Like, you wouldn't think that something like red lipstick would make a person nervous, but when you're already very beautiful and then you add on a beauty enhancement like lipstick or lashes or whatever, now you look like a vampy, seductive, it's just like you start spiraling. So that's a sign that you actually have a beauty pedestal. Sometimes your pedestal is so high that it can make you spiral. It can make you feel a sense of pressure. You can have like this fear of your own beauty. You're scared of your own beauty because it's unpredictable. It causes all different types of reactions. So that's another part of the pretty privileged experience. You cause extreme reactions. You got the men who are trying to be chauvinistic, they're trying to get your attention. You're attracting these jealous women who are trying to sabotage you. In the case of the women I talked about earlier, where maybe they had jealous mothers, now your mother is going to be looking at you crazy, or she might make a negative comment. Have you ever had that happen where maybe you look so pretty that now you don't want to go to the cookout? Now you don't want to go to the family cookout, or now you don't want to go to church or whatever because you already know that the comments are going to start flooding in. Or they're going to have people be like, oh, let me come look at you. Oh, come here. Have you ever had family members or friends where you get dressed up one day and then suddenly they want to stare at you? They'll tell you to stop what you're doing and walk over so they can like get a closer look at how beautiful you look. So that's a sign that you have like a beauty pedestal, but it also can cause a lot of anxiety, especially in young girls who don't really understand sociology. It causes anxiety. So a lot of women, they think that they're just these anxious people. They'll be like, oh, something's wrong with me, or like, I'm just an introvert, or I have anxiety. When in reality, no, it's more so society is reacting in an extreme way to your beauty. So it's almost as if your own beauty can sometimes take you out of character. So, for example, let's say you're normally an extrovert. Normally you're bubbly and loud and whatever. But then once you get dressed up, now you want to be quiet. Because now you feel the pressure to dim yourself down because, your looks are already like drawing every eye towards you in the room. So now you feel the need to shrink yourself emotionally because you feel like you're already shining bright in terms of your physical appearance. So you're scared of offending people. You have to shrink into being a people pleaser. Pretty women feel more pressure to be people pleasers versus women who are unattractive or invisible, because the invisible women, they don't have anybody gunning for them. When you're pretty, people are gunning for you all the time. There's a man gunning for you. There's somebody trying to sleep with you. There's someone who wants to use you. There are women who want to be friends with you just for clout so they can get all your leftover men. You got other women who are jealous of you, or you got people who want to sabotage you, or you have businesses and companies who want to use you as a marketing tool. So it's like you're dealing with all this stuff. It's overwhelming. Somebody always wants something from you when you're the pretty girl. Somebody always wants something. They want your attention. They want your validation. They want you to stroke their egos. Everybody wants to fit in with the pretty girl, or they want to have power over the pretty girl. So this is also why, like in my case, I don't know how many times I've been stopped at the fucking border. Like I'll have times where I'm stopped at the border. I get stopped by TSA, even though I have nothing illegal going on or whatever. So sometimes you attract these men who just want to dominate you. They just want to dominate and subjugate you. They want to feel like they got power. They're like, I finally have power over the pretty girl. Let me stop her and question her and make her feel like a prostitute because she's a pretty girl who crossed the border. Or maybe in the workplace, they'll be like, oh, let me send emails about her. Let me make her feel stupid in the meetings. Or let me call out her beauty enhancements. Like, have you ever had coworkers who try to make fun of you wearing makeup or eyelashes? Or they'll be like, oh, she was just putting on makeup at work. Like one time I remember I got reported, this is when I was a teenager, somebody literally told the manager I was putting on makeup at work. I was putting on chapstick. I was not putting on makeup, but they just wanted to stereotype me like, oh, she's not working. She's a lazy bitch. She's just putting on makeup when she's supposed to be working. But I think for some women who have a beauty pedestal, when you look pretty, you're literally going to get scared when you look in the mirror because some women come from cultures where beauty is demonized. So just like what I said, if you had the mothers or female family members who are not pretty, obviously they don't want you to be pretty either. Have you ever noticed people want you to succeed, but just not more than them? They want you to look pretty, just not prettier than them. They want you to get attention, just not more attention than them. So that's why for some women, being beautiful, it triggers a sense of danger within them because they feel like, they're opening themselves up to be attacked, or they feel like their own beauty is almost a form of rebellion. Because maybe you come from generations of women who hated beauty. Have you ever had like a grandma or an auntie where they're always talking shit about somebody beautiful? They're always talking shit about celebrities. Anybody who's pretty, they just automatically find something negative to say. So maybe you grew up where you're watching pop stars or whatever, and then next thing you know, your mom or your auntie or sister, she always says something negative about that girl. Or maybe you had some friends who were pretty, and then your family members, they downplayed her beauty or they put her down. Or maybe you grew up in a church where all the church women would gang up on the pretty girl. Same thing with school. Like at my school, I went to a private school. I noticed that they would gang up on the pretty girls as well. I mean, that's pretty typical in high school. They gang up on the pretty girl, the new pretty girl who just transferred in as a junior. They automatically are mean to her. Another sign of having a high beauty pedestal is you're so pretty that you are physically afraid of men and physically afraid of jealous women as well. Because even if you look on YouTube, notice how the women who talk about decentering men the most, they actually tend to be very pretty women. I don't see hideous, ugly women. I can't think of not one woman who talks about decentering men who's ugly. No, usually pretty women are actually more likely to decenter men, not just because of the trauma, but also because, like, we have to. We get overwhelming amounts of attention, so much attention that we don't want it. Pretty girls actually tend to be a lot less desperate because I've noticed usually the women who feel invisible around men, those are the ones who are the most desperate. Those are the ones who struggle with limerence the most. As for pretty women, we tend to know the true nature of men a lot earlier in life because think about it, the average young underage pretty girl has probably been approached for sex. She's probably been essayed or harassed or propositioned by an older man. So that's part of the average experience, not just of pretty women but just any woman in general. So we've already got that aspect of it, and then there's the aspect of people always wanting to use you as a status symbol, or you've got people fighting over you, men literally getting into physical fights over you. So that's dangerous. Your beauty is literally causing violence. Yeah, that's dangerous. So a lot of people, they think that when women are talking about decentering men, it's because they're lesbians or whatever. No, it's because when you have pretty privilege, sometimes it literally opens you up to different types of danger that invisible women will never have to deal with. That's one of the privileges of being invisible. Nobody cares. So you can do whatever you want. You can just live your life and nobody's gunning for you. Nobody's fighting over you. Nobody's viewing you as a status symbol or trying to use you. I think being invisible has other traumas, though, that are way worse. Because I'm not going to try to sit here and act like being pretty is not a privilege, because it is. That's why I call it pretty privilege. So I would never trade in my beauty to be ugly. You wanted us to acknowledge our pretty privilege so bad? Okay, well, here we are acknowledging it. Yeah, you're right. I would never want to trade in my beauty and be fugly. So I'm never going to apologize for it either, though. I'm not going to apologize for how I was born. I'm not going to apologize for the deck of cards I've been dealt. You know how they say, oh, everybody was dealt a different hand of cards in life, so you just got to use what you got. Okay. So then that means pretty privileged women have the right to use what they got, and we have the right to utilize our pretty privilege however we want or don't want. But a lot of women who are pretty privileged, they are physically afraid of men as well as jealous women because they have endured violence or extreme sabotage. So for example, I'll use myself as an example. So I told you guys some of the stories about my HBCU experience where I had girls sneaking into my dorm room, putting Nair and relaxer in my shampoo, or when I went in the shower stalls, snatching my towel off of the shower stall and then running away so that I had to run down the hall with no clothes on. So it's like doing these things to humiliate that girl because she's the pretty one. You want to call out her flaws or you want to embarrass her. So those are examples of some of the experiences that you might have as someone who has beauty. So it makes you hyper visible, but it also makes you hyper visible to the wrong people. It puts a target on your back, and this is why you'll see a lot of pretty girls who go through a season of isolation. That's a very common thing that happens to pretty women. I feel like all of us have been through at least one period of isolation where maybe we got rid of an entire friend group. Like, I know I've done that before. I remember one time I had to cut off the entire group. I cut off I think 3 or 4 girls all within one day. And this is when I was a teenager, but it's like sometimes women are quicker to turn on you because they feel like you can drop them at any time. And so, it's this mindset of let me reject her first before she rejects me. So I think every pretty girl has probably been through at least one period of isolation. But one thing that I don't promote on this channel, I will never tell you to stay isolated because that literally causes mental illness. Okay, that's why they have solitary confinement. That's a form of isolation. It is proven to make you mentally ill. So I will never promote pretty girls staying in an isolated state. I don't want you to stay that way. I want you to use it as a transition period and then find people who support you, because just like how there are a lot of bad people out there, there are also good people out there as well. So I hope you can find, even women in the Pretty Girl Club. You can join the Patreon and the Discord, and there are a lot of girls in there. We have an entire mental health support group in there. So it's like, it's just a bunch of pretty girls talking about their struggles and stuff and kind of supporting each other. So I think that's another aspect of the pretty girl experience, is having a sense of isolation as well, because pretty girls do tend to have more drama with friendships, and that's because her beauty literally can get in the way of her friendships. Her beauty can get in the way of her friendships. It can get in the way of her relationships with her sisters, with her mother, with her, you know what I mean? It's almost like your beauty is this elephant in the room where people may not always acknowledge it. They may not always talk about it, but it's always lurking in the background. It's always, people are always thinking about it. They're always noticing it. And also, when you're pretty, your validation is more important to other people. Also, your insults hit harder. Like if you're a pretty girl and you call someone ugly, oh my gosh, you will make somebody cry. I mean, and I learned that as a teenager. I was pretty immature, but I learned, oh wow, since I'm pretty, if I insult people, they'll be way more hurt versus if somebody unattractive insults them, because I have a form of social power. So I think that depending on how old you are or what your experiences are, you start to learn that your beauty is a source of power. In fact, a lot of men actually complain about this in terms of dating, and they call it hoflation. It's not hoflation. It's beauty. It's the value of beauty. It's society's obsession with beauty. And then they'll say, oh, well, she's a 6, but she thinks she's a 10. Okay, but still, even if she only has a little bit of beauty, or, even if she just barely has pretty privilege, she's not the prettiest woman in the world, but still, pretty privilege in any capacity, it still is a source of power. So you start to realize how powerful your insults are. You start to realize that when you insult someone, they will remember your insult for decades. They will remember when you rejected them or when you dumped them or whatever. They'll remember the whole story decades later. So I think that's another aspect of having a beauty pedestal. Once you get into, I would say, young adulthood, is when you realize how much social power you actually have. And you're like, wow, oh my God. And that's why some men are so against like dating apps, for example, because they don't want women to know that men are so desperate for women that, you'll probably get messages or whatever, or people chasing after you and all that shit. I don't base my sense of beauty around the male gaze, but that's one of the things that even men acknowledge when it comes to pretty privilege, is the amount of social power you have, the amount of desirability you have, the amount of people that want your attention, they want your time, they want your validation. They're willing to pay just to be in your presence. They want to wine and dine you. They want to give you gifts. They want to do all this special stuff for you. And it's not just men also. It's women as well. Like women who really want to be your friend because they feel like you're going to open them up to a different lifestyle, which is kind of true. That it is kind of true. But I've learned though that I don't really make good friends with women who are unattractive because their personality types are different. They do tend to complain a lot more, or they tend to feel socially left behind. Like, let's say there's an unattractive girl in the group, and then we go to a very pretty space where all the girls are pretty, she's going to feel left out. So I don't want to put her through that trauma. So that's part of why I talk about being friends with other women who are pretty privileged, because you don't want to traumatize the unattractive girl even more. You don't want her to feel inferior. Like, this is not about me thinking I'm better. This is about me trying to actually help prevent additional trauma to the unattractive woman. I don't want to have 10 pretty girls in the room and then you got this one girl who feels like she's fugly or she looks terrible, and then we all try to go out and then all of us pretty girls get in and then she gets left out. So I don't want that type of drama. So I think that that's part of why you see a lot of pretty girls where we all tend to hang out together if we do have a friend group. And this is also why I say it's important to know your hater archetype as well. Because I see a lot of pretty girls commenting on my channel. They'll be like, oh, well, I don't have any friends because they're all haters. Okay, so now that you know your hater archetype, do not make friends with those women. Go find women who are not your hater archetype. There are billions of different people in this world. Women are not a monolith. So if you notice all your friends are black and they're all haters, stop hanging out with black girls. If you notice all your friends are white and they're all haters, stop hanging out with white girls. Oh, well, Exoticals United, you're stereotyping. I don't give a fuck. People stereotype me all day long. They stereotype based on my YouTube titles. So how are you going to stereotype me and then get mad when I give you the same energy? No. So I think it's important for pretty girls to know their hater archetype. It's more important for pretty girls because we have to keep ourselves safe. We also have to protect our beauty because a lot of people want to destroy your beauty because your beauty is a source of power. It's a source of opportunity. So let's say you have a pretty face. Notice how a lot of girls will threaten to punch you in the face. Why is it always something with the face? You know, they want to punch you in the face. They want to pull your hair when you have pretty long hair. Why is it that they want to destroy your car if you have a pretty car? They're always going to target whatever is a source of beauty. They're going to target that thing and try to destroy it. Or the men who want to get you pregnant. They want to slow you down. They want to destroy your ambition because beauty also contributes to your ambition. Because when you're pretty, you actually have a shot. You actually have a chance to be an actress. You actually have a chance to be a pop star, or you have a chance to be a successful real estate agent or whatever, because you already have that beauty to get your foot in the door. So a lot of men will also, they want to try to impregnate you. Maybe you have a very gorgeous body shape, nice flat stomach. Oh, he wants that stomach to be big. He wants that stomach to be filled with his baby. And a lot of men will actually brag about having you as their baby mama. They'll be like, oh, you see that beautiful, pretty, educated girl over there? Yeah, that's my baby mama. Yeah, that's my child's mother. So it's like, it just kind of disgusts me, honestly, because it's like, wow, men are literally, they're impregnating women not because they actually care about the child, but they're doing it specifically so they can use that woman as a status symbol. I am forever tied to her because she had my baby. She had my child. So I think that women who are pretty privileged have to protect themselves more than other women because there's always somebody that wants to get something out of you. They want your genetics to be a part of their children. They see you have pretty eyes, pretty face, whatever. And so, of course, they want to reproduce with you. They didn't choose the ugly woman to reproduce, or if they did, they realized it was a mistake. This is another fucked up thing. Men will literally admit on TikTok that their first baby mama is ugly, and so the next time they wanted to create a baby mama, they're going to try to go for somebody pretty because they didn't realize that their kids would turn out looking ugly. And so now they're trying to impregnate the pretty woman. Like, people have all kinds of disgusting agendas against you when you're pretty. Another sign of having a beauty pedestal is people are lying on you. So you might have men who lie and say they slept with you. You'll have men who lie and say that you were fighting over them, or they'll lie and say that you like them when you didn't. You'll have men bragging about having your phone number, bragging about you DMing them or them DMing back and forth with you. Just all sorts of random shit. People just brag about being associated with you. And so I feel like pretty women have to be way more selective. This is part of where the stereotype comes from, that we're stuck up. We're not stuck up. We just learned the hard way that we can't talk to everybody. We have to be selective. We have to be very private. We can't share all of our vulnerabilities with everybody because people are seeking out our vulnerabilities. They're trying to figure out what our flaws are. They're trying to figure out our secrets so they can go tell it to the whole world. So it's not that we're stuck up, it's that we have learned self-preservation. Pretty women tend to actually be better at self-preservation because we learn it the hard way from the time we're children or from the time we're young adults. We learn a very difficult lesson that we have to be self-preserving. Otherwise, people will try to take away any sort of pedestal. They'll try to ruin opportunities. Have you ever tried to apply for a job, or maybe you want to audition for something, and then a friend will lie to you, and then they'll be like, oh no, the tryouts are on Tuesday. In reality, the tryouts were on Monday. She showed up to the tryout. She wanted to make sure that you didn't get there to audition. She wanted to make sure that you missed the deadline. See, that's that shit that I'm talking about. That's why pretty girls sometimes come off as stuck up. It's because we had to deal with more bullshit than women who are invisible. Women who are invisible, they don't have someone always gunning for them. They don't have someone specifically going out of their way to just sabotage them. Invisible women, the advantage that they have is that they get ignored. So nobody cares. So they can level up in peace. Another part of having a beauty pedestal is not only are you the standard of beauty, but you're also a standard of living and you're a standard of dating. Because when you're pretty, people will try to copy your style. They try to copy your car. They try to copy how you speak. They'll copy how you decorated your apartment, your dorm room. They want to copy who you're dating. So you're a fucking fashion icon. You're a fucking life coach. I mean, you become a freaking socialite, whether you like it or not. And this is why being a pretty introvert as well can be like a source of torment, because you'll see a lot of introverted women complain. I feel like when you're a pretty extrovert, you have a lot more conflict and fights and crazy stories. And then when you're a pretty introvert, you have a lot of stories of feeling overwhelmed because everybody's just all up in your business. Memorizing everywhere you go, memorizing where you shop, memorizing what you eat, copying your diet, copying your Instagram page, copying how you do your poses, how you do your photos, the location for your photo shoots. I mean, anything and everything you can think of. There's somebody trying to copy your shit. But I think I'm on number 11. So when you have a beauty pedestal, though, you have multiple sources of beauty. So you have pretty eyes, nose, lips. I'm trying to think of how many sources of beauty you can have. I'm just going to estimate. Let's say there are 50 different ways to be pretty. I would say if you have more than 25, so more than half of your physical appearance is considered pretty, okay, that's undeniable beauty pedestal territory. If you just have one or two things, oh well, they said they liked my nose, that they liked the shape of my nose. Okay, that's just one thing. But I would say if more than half of your physical appearance is getting complimented all the time, you are in beauty pedestal territory. And basically, if you can relate to everything I've been talking about, if you can only relate to one or two things, I would say that's more so your average or whatever, or regular. So this channel may not be for you because you may be deeply offended. If you're deeply offended by my channel, you are not my core audience. So I think it's more mentally healthy for you to go find a channel where they cater to the average woman as opposed to, pretty privileged women. But yeah, women who have a beauty pedestal have multiple sources of beauty. So pretty eyes, pretty nose, pretty lips, pretty teeth, pretty eyebrows, pretty hair. Let's talk about hair, the beauty pedestal that comes with different hair. You could have a pretty hair length. So maybe that's a part of your hair pretty privilege, is you have tailbone length hair or something. Maybe it's your actual hair texture. And I talk about this a lot on my channel, texturism, benefiting from texturism. So that could be your curl pattern. You have type 1, 2, or 3 hair, or, people in the black community say you have quote unquote good hair. It could also be maybe the silkiness of your hair. So not just the curl pattern, but maybe you have silky hair, like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's like this shiny hair texture. So for example, do you get accused of dyeing your hair? Like in my case, my hair is naturally very shiny, or it can be extremely shiny, especially if I put gel or something on it, then yeah. But I've had people literally accuse me of dyeing my hair to make it shinier. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like dyeing your hair makes it shinier? I don't know. But maybe people accuse your hair of being fake. So again, that's a sign that you got a beauty pedestal in terms of hair. So that's something else to think about. That's another source of your beauty as well. Do people kind of pedestalize not just your hair itself, but maybe like the hair texture, maybe your hair color? That's another beauty pedestal in regards to hair. Do you have naturally blonde hair? I know that's something, or like that sandy hair color. That's definitely a pedestalized hair color, I would say. Well, I've heard people pedestalize that hair color. Or maybe your hair is just, it's very shiny. So like the texture of it, people pedestalize that, because think about it, they're putting on edge control and all of that so they can have shiny hair that mimics yours. When you get in the pool and come out of the pool, your hair's shiny. You don't have to put shit on your hair. It's still going to have shine. Or maybe when you feel like your hair is dry. Like one time I went to work, my hair looked like shit, honestly. It was just in a regular bun. My hair's curly. I did not have any, this is before edge control and all that was even a thing. So I didn't have anything on it. There was no edge control or gels or anything to make it look special. I just put it in a bun. I didn't wash my hair that day. And there was this girl at my job, and she was like, wow, my hair looks so dry compared to yours. Her hair texture was more like, I don't know, I guess you would call it a 4C. She had her hair shaved, basically. It was like shaved down really low. So she barely had any hair at all. And her hair was dyed blonde. And she was like, yeah, my hair always looks dry. And I was like, no, I didn't even notice your hair at all. Like, I don't think it looks dry. It just looks like, that's your hairstyle, like the little blonde wave, 360 waves or whatever, the blonde hair. And she was like, no, your hair always looks moisturized. Like, even looking at your hair right now, it doesn't look dry at all. But according to my standards, my hair did actually look dry, and it was dry. But because I have a shine to my hair naturally, according to her perspective, the shine level is what made it look, I guess, more moisturized or whatever. So that's another aspect of a beauty pedestal when it comes to hair. Is it the shine and luster of your hair? Is it the length of your hair? Oh, that's Brittany with the long hair. Are you known for always having long hair? Are you known for the health of your hair? Are you known for the texture of your hair? Having curls, like in my case, I've been accused of doing twist outs or whatever to try to make my curl pattern look a certain way, because usually women with type 4 hair, they don't understand how my hair just has a different pattern than theirs. So sometimes people are kind of comparing your hair to theirs, or they expect your hair to look more like theirs, or they're just trying to figure out your secret. What is her secret? How does she make her hair look so pretty? And I told you guys the story about how when I was in church, I overheard these girls talking behind me. They were literally trying to figure out how I got my curl pattern to look a certain way. I literally overheard them right behind me in the pews. They're like, "Oh, is that a twist out?" Or like, "How did she do that?" And it's like, "Ma'am, you could have just tapped me on the shoulder and complimented my hair and then asked me how I got it that way." But no, you decided to gossip and try to investigate behind my back how I got my hair to look cute so that you could just go and steal you just want to copy it. That's another part of having a beauty pedestal. The only reason people want to know your secret is so they can go and copy it. So they're going to make fun of you. First, they hate and make fun of you. And then afterwards, they're going to secretly go and do the same thing. So they'll be like, oh, you dyed your hair. Oh, well, you have blonde highlights. Your hair's not naturally blonde. Well, you're using lemon juice on your hair and you're using all this stuff to give your hair a natural dimension to it. And then next thing you know, that bitch is secretly doing the same shit. She's secretly doing the same beauty routines as you. And that's why I say that I have no problem with pretty girls who choose to gatekeep their beauty routines. Because you know what? It's nobody's business. They don't have to know. If you're dyeing your hair or if you got a gloss treatment or whatever, that's really none of their business. They don't deserve to know. They don't deserve to have access to you on that level. Or you can charge them money. A lot of pretty women have learned how to be smart and they'll start a whole natural hair channel. Like, okay, bitch, you want to compliment my hair so much? Guess what? I'm going to get paid. So I'm going to make a whole TikTok page or a YouTube page and I'm going to talk about my hair texture. And now, every time you view my channel, every time you hit the like or dislike button, I get paid. So I think that being pretty also forces you to be more strategic as well. So I think that it's not just that society is biased in favor of pretty women. It's also that being pretty causes you to develop certain character traits that end up helping you in a capitalistic society. Another sign of a beauty pedestal is that it gives you a fluid identity, whether you like it or not. So you're breaking stereotypes with your beauty to the point where even racist people will acknowledge your beauty. And they'll give you comments like, you're not like other blacks, or you're the exception, or you look exotic, or I don't normally like light-skinned girls, but I like you. I don't normally like black girls, but I like you. I don't normally like plus size or tall or short or XYZ, but I like you. So that's another aspect of the beauty pedestal. Your beauty kind of breaks barriers, I guess. It kind of breaks people's stereotypes. Now, do you want to really be with somebody who, starts off stereotyping you? Of course not, because that's pretty dusty, but that's a part of having a beauty pedestal. I've noticed that you have more of a fluid identity, whereas unattractive women feel trapped in their identity. They feel trapped in a certain community, or they feel trapped in a certain dating pool or whatever. There's this sense of, I can't break outside of the box. I always get put in the same box. I've noticed that pretty privileged women don't really have that. They kind of have the choice of what box they want to be put in. Number 12, your beauty pedestal has helped you to survive. So, for example, women who are turning to X work and then they become rich. The average X worker is poor. The average X worker really wants to get out of it. But I've noticed sometimes women who have these beauty pedestals, their beauty itself helps them to survive. And not just X work, but just anything. Maybe it's like some boyfriend or whatever, he offers you a place to stay. He shares his money with you. He shares his resources with you. People naturally want to help you more because you have that beauty pedestal. So, how do you build your beauty pedestal? One way you can build it, if you want even more pretty privilege, you can enhance what you already have. So, for example, let's say you have a face card and you're obese and you've just been using the face card. Well, maybe getting to a healthy weight, that would help you even more because then you can test it out. A lot of people will say things like, oh, I don't want to lose weight because I like how I am when I'm chunky. It's like, okay, but you've never tried. You've never tried to see what life would be like with a pretty face and a healthy body. So just try it out. Lose the weight, and then if you don't like it, then go back. Go back to being fat then. So I think that experimenting with your beauty identity, that's a way you can kind of build your pretty privilege because you may not know what type of pedestal you have access to. And this is why you see a lot of women who are pretty. You'll see them experimenting with different makeup looks, different hair looks, different wigs, beauty enhancements, even surgeries sometimes, whatever. You'll see them experimenting because they want to see how far they can take it. Like, this is my beauty pedestal. Now, how far can I take this? What type of beauty pedestal do I want? Do I like the Afrocentric beauty pedestal, using dark skin privilege to my advantage? Or do I like being more of a token, more of the only dark skinned person in the room? So maybe trying to use my dark skin privilege in a non-black space and use it as a form of standing out amongst non-black people. So that's part of why you might see women who are already pretty changing up their looks a little bit because they're just experimenting. They want to tap into a different kind of beauty for that month or that week. Another way that I've seen women build their beauty pedestals is by using their geographical location. So some people call it geomaxing or passport. I make fun of this, passport sis or passport bro, whatever. But no, some women, let's say they want to be a model or something, or I don't know, they might move to another country because maybe they stand out more in that particular country, or maybe they feel like their type of beauty is celebrated in a certain city. So, for example, like in my case, well, I don't want to dox where I'm from, but like, okay, so they have different regional standards of beauty, right, in the US. And I feel like sometimes I kind of give this California West Coast beauty standard, and I don't always want to I don't want that. I don't want that particular type. I don't always want to have that look to me. Sometimes I want to try to experiment with something else, kind of like the Southern Belle version of beauty. I kind of think of like Sabrina Carpenter. I don't know if she's I don't know if she's from the South, but I think of like, those picnic blankets, like the gingham print, or like this Americana type of beauty with like the cowgirl boots or whatever. Sometimes I might want to experiment with a different regional type of beauty. So the Southern American beauty standard, or for some women, they like that LA Hollywood influencer beauty standard, or like this social media type of beauty, or the Miami 10 or whatever they call it. So kind of like this racially ambiguous Latina swimsuit model. That's what I think of when I think of Miami, like kind of this swimsuit model aesthetic, or like the Las Vegas beauty standards where you just look like you are hanging out with high rollers all day. And, like, I don't know. That's something to think about though. And that's something I've noticed that women will do to build their beauty pedestal. They might move locations, or they might hang out in spaces where they like that beauty standard. So is there any particular ethnic group, or is there a particular city or country where you appreciate their beauty standard? You like that beauty standard. Or maybe you naturally fit that beauty standard. You are their beauty standard. And this is why I will never shame the women who are in the Black community. Maybe they are exoticals, they're multiracial or something, and they hang out in the Black community because they get celebrated or get paid in the Black community. You'll never see me making fun of that. Because, if it's going to make you rich, or if that's helping you to feed yourself and your family, and now you're living a better life because of how well you're treated in the Black community, I will never shame that. The only women who shame that are women who are jealous of that. They're women who have been devalued and treated like shit in the Black community, so that's why they are discarding it. But same thing with the white community. The people who make fun of you and say, oh, you're trying to be white. You're trying to be Asian by hanging out with Asian people. You're trying to be Latina by hanging out with Latinas. It's like, you're going where you're celebrated. So why is it that Black women can go where they're celebrated, but suddenly if you're a Black woman who is a biracial woman, or you're some sort of woman who benefits from isms, now you can't go where you're celebrated? No, they're just mad because they don't want any competition. That's what it is. They feel like you're their competition. They have a scarcity mindset, so they're just afraid that you're going to get picked over them. But another way that I see women building their beauty pedestal is by picking a niche, picking a beauty niche. So, for example, those women that are like the goth beauties, or the women that are like, I don't know, they dress kind of like a princess or a fairy or like an elf or something, or the women who are eclectic. They dress in like band t shirts and baggy jeans, kind of this tomboy version of beauty, like Aaliyah or like Tiana Taylor or somebody like that. So, niche, kind of like finding a beauty niche. That's another way that I see women building their beauty pedestal, because it helps them stand out. They don't dress like everyone else. They don't look like a carbon copy of every IG baddie with the BBL or whatever. So they have a different type of beauty. Like in my case, being thin actually is a part of my beauty niche. I like to be skinny with no ass because, most women have fat asses. And so I actually stand out by having a skinny butt, by having a little booty. Little booties matter. But something else I see too is women who wear unique hairstyles, or they do unique makeup. So maybe they do the very artsy, like tribal makeup or something, or they wear hairstyles that you don't normally see. Usually, if I'm around people who are like Black, I'm always going to see lace fronts, baby hairs, maybe some braids or like some locks, maybe the occasional afro puff. So I sometimes see women doing different styles. So not the ones I just named. They'll do something different because it helps them stand out within their field. And that's another thing to think about too. Why do you want a beauty pedestal? Like, why do you care? That's a question that you want to answer, because that's going to help you. So in my case, I care about a beauty pedestal because I think it's a way that I can express myself. My beauty is an expression of my femininity. It helps me to feel carefree. It helps me to satisfy my inner child, to like wear sparkly bracelets and like earrings that have teddy bears on them and stuff. Like, I know it sounds really dorky and nerdy, but no, I like using my beauty as a healing tool. I like using beauty as a source of comfort for me. And I also feel like focusing on my own beauty actually helps me to decenter men, because I'm not always focused on the male gaze. If all you want is the male gaze, you don't have to do all the niche and, move to a whole new city or anything like that. You can just show your ass and then boom. I mean, just be a woman and some man is going to want you. So I think that in my case, by focusing on the nuances of beauty, it's a fun way for me to be artsy, because I'm not a naturally artsy like, I don't paint or anything like that. So I think that using my body as the canvas, that's a good way for me to express myself, and it's a good way for me to get excited about creativity, since I don't really paint paintings or like decorate and stuff like that. I like to use my body as the canvas as opposed to using like a piece of paper or something. So I just think that that's something that gets me excited. Also, creativity, it helps to keep your brain healthy as well. So that's something to think about too. Like, as you age, you know how some people have dementia and stuff like that, and it comes from not really utilizing certain parts of their brain, or at least that's what some people say. I just like the aspect of having beauty hobbies, so that's why I care about a beauty pedestal. Also, beauty has helped me to acquire more money. It has helped me to have financial stability and independence. I think that beauty, it has helped me to have opportunities. So, travel opportunities, job opportunities. It's like this magical thing. I've talked about it before. It almost gives a sense of spark and excitement to my life. I don't really get excited about a lot of things, if I'm being honest. I don't really get excited about like men or drinking or smoking or doing drugs or whatever. So, beauty is one of my main sources of excitement. So it's one of my hobbies. I think it's fun, actually. to go and like try out little knickknacks. And I don't know, it's my way of being leisurely. It's kind of like my leisurely activity because I'm not one of those Netflix girls that watches all the shows, or like I just sit around for 8 hours and watch like a bunch of movies. That doesn't excite me. But for whatever reason, bedazzling something, or just making something for myself, or trying out a new eyeliner or something, for some reason that just excites me more. And so it's just like I'm trying to feed my own curiosity. I think it's a healthy version of play. That's why I like beauty. It's a healthy version of feminine play. And I don't need to involve a man. I don't have to sleep with anyone. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not harming my body. So it's like, what's the harm? That's why I like beauty as one of my foundational hobbies, is because I just feel like it's something that's very harmless. You're not hurting anyone by you just being beautiful, or by doing your nails or something. That's not hurting anyone. And I think that beauty also has helped me to restore my sense of dignity. And the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of people in society, they want to control women's bodies. They want to control how we express ourselves. So sometimes when I do my own beauty routine, it's kind of like me taking back power over myself. It helps me to recenter myself. It helps me to focus back on myself and to get back into my own body when I'm like scrubbing my feet, doing pedicures and stuff. Um, so that's one of the reasons why I like beauty. So why do you like beauty? Why do you care about beauty pedestals? How do you want to use your beauty pedestal? Do you want to use it as a source of revenge? Because I will admit that I have done that as well, and it feels great. Because I don't fight people. I'm not the type that will fight people. I'm not the type that will destroy somebody's property or whatever. So my quote unquote revenge is me looking good and feeling good and living my best life. So for some people, that might be why they like beauty as well. Maybe it gives you a sense of social power. I mean, it is. Beauty is a form of social power. So I like that aspect of it as well. I think beauty also makes it easier for me to level up because I already look like I'm leveled up. I already look like I belong there. So if you want to get a job at some fancy, swanky place and you walk in looking pretty versus looking like a bum, you already look like you belong there. So I feel like it just makes things more easy and smooth. But what do you ladies think? Let me know in the comment section and I'll talk to you next time. Stay pretty, ladies.